I'm Sarina Fazan. Taking a risk, making a difference, and changing the course of your life. Remarkable stories from people defying the odds. You're listening to Trailblazer. Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Sarina Fazan. Welcome to Trailblazer, where you hear from amazing people and their remarkable stories and their journeys. I am so excited to introduce you to Gabbi Westra. I stutter. I have a speech impediment, which is a very long story. Barbara Walters and I share the same thing. Her husband, Pier, and Gabbi. Hi, guys.
Hi, Gabbi.
And you know what's so exciting? You guys are the first podcast in our brand new
Yay!
studio.
Yay! Exciting. I know.
Yes.
This is so cool. It's a great studio.
I can't even look at me already, like walking all over you, but I'm very excited to have you here. Vicky, you are the founder of Autism Shifts.
Yes.
And we are going to get into your organization and everything that it's about. But first, I'm so moved by your story. Share your journey on how you were able to adopt Gabbi.
Well, Pier and I got together as a couple, and yes, and then got married. And I think, as a lot of young couples, we had dreams of starting our own family. We had like the 5-year plan, and I think 3 years into it, we decided, we're ready.
It's a 3-year plan.
It's a 3-year plan. We modified it, and then when we went down the path of having our own child, that didn't happen for us. We tried a lot of things, and after like 7 years, we said, well, this must not be the plan for us. Our plan must be, because we wanted a child ultimately, to adopt. And
wow.
Yeah.
So why did you choose international adoption? Because Gabbi's from Romania, right?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. So.
No, I had a couple of friends that had gone the domestic adoption route. We had a number of friends that went that route, but a couple of them had biological parents come back after the fact and challenge their parental rights. One of them actually had the child taken away. The courts granted custody back to the biological father. And it was one of those things that if you're working this hard to have a family, that's the last thing I think that we were emotionally ready for. Mm-hmm. So, we looked into international adoption. That seemed to be the safest way to go. Mm-hmm. So that was our approach. Right. And so we were first looking at China. Didn't realize that they had a age requirement. We weren't old enough. The two of us weren't old enough to adopt from China.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
How old were you guys at the time? Under 35. Early 30s.
It had to be 35 for China at the time.
Both parents had to be 35.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you started the process.
Wow.
So it was, and so that wasn't a fit. We ran into Universal Aid for Children. Some people in our area had adopted from Romania through them. It looked like a really easy program, and that, so many foreign adoptions, you have to go over and spend an unknown amount of time in the country, possibly have to make 2 trips over. And this was a company that had a representation in Romania that allowed them to do the adoption, to handle it all on a basically power of attorney type mm-hmm. basis. Mm-hmm. The woman who was their Romanian representative actually was a former Miss Romania.
Wow.
And so it looked like a great way to go. The kids that were coming out in our area seemed to be adjusting well. And we're like, gosh, this looks like a perfect fit.
Right. And also there was some, because of your background, right, Pier?
Yeah, well, and that was kind of secondary to it. But yeah, my grandmother was from the area of Hungary, Romania, that's very close to where her orphanage was. Hers was actually a different orphanage than a lot were coming from, but Romania is not a large country. So, there is kind of that genetic tie.
Yeah. Sure, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And then you said that you wanted to adopt maybe a child that was a little bit older. Maybe not an infant, right? Can you explain that?
Right. Yeah. At the time, with some of these countries, it was a little bit safer to adopt a little bit older child because they go through more screening processes. Sometimes they weed out things like alcohol, mm-hmm. And some of the other factors. And so since Pier and I were both in the corporate world, we were like, well, that kind of fits. We were then a little bit older. So we were looking to get a child, about 1.5 year old. So maybe not an infant, but yeah, around that age.
So then they present you with a picture of Gabbi.
Yes.
And she was 9 months old, right?
9 months old.
Standing up in a crib at her orphanage in Romania. So
Yeah.
when you first saw her picture, what went through your hearts and your minds?
This is our daughter.
She did.
This is our daughter.
Directly into our hearts and minds.
Yeah. When we saw it, we just said, this is a child that was supposed to be with us.
Oh my gosh. But then it took a while to actually be able to get her into this country.
Right. It took a lot longer than the normal process, which is 1.5 to 2 years. It took us like an additional year, just with all the things that were going on in Romania at the time. So by the time we got her, instead of her being a little bit older than 1 year, she was actually 2 years and 3 months.
Yeah.
So this must have been also testing your patience, testing your love,
gosh.
everything. I can't imagine how difficult that was.
Oh,
Very
yes.
emotional.
It was very emotional.
Especially after everything we'd gone through trying to have children, and then this was just another emotional,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Slow down.
So,
that doesn't come across in a podcast.
so before we continue on to your story, which is amazing, for people who are listening and maybe going through that process right now, of what you guys went through to get your child, what advice would you have for parents?
Well, I mean, now we would say, visualize the end result. Like, be happy now. No matter if that child's not with you, you can still conjure up the emotion of what you want to create, right? And really, it's the joy that you want with your family, right?
Right. So think of those emotions.
Right.
And right.
Because look at it this way, you want to have a child, but your joy of having a child isn't just when the child is in your arms. It's the entire process, right?
Yes.
I mean, as soon as the test stick, you're pregnant. I mean, the joy starts then. So
Right.
going through the process, be as happy as you can in that process. And it will make everything a lot easier.
Yes,
I wish
yes.
we'd known that then.
No,
We
that's
didn't
great
know that
advice.
then.
That's why I wanted to be able to. I thought I cannot forget asking them this question, so I'm glad I asked you that question.
Yes.
And we are broadcasting out of Tampa, Florida, just to give our viewers and listeners an image, from where we are. Because I mentioned that because you traveled into Miami, correct? To
Right.
pick up Gabbi.
Yes.
So pick up the story from there. So why go to Miami to get Gabbi? Is that where they flew her in? Clearly, that's where they
Right.
flew her in.
Yes. That's where they flew her in, and we had all of our family waiting in Tampa International Airport. But Pier and his father and I went to go pick her up, and so we were waiting there at the gate when they came through.
Dad
and
was our cameraman.
they were carrying Gabbi, which she was very tiny. I mean, she was 2 years and 3 months and weighed like 22 pounds.
Wow.
She was tiny, yeah.
Yeah.
So, which, we didn't expect her to be that small, but obviously she had traveled for over 20 hours to get there, so she was exhausted, but they just kind of handed her over and,
Vicky,
was-
what was that like? So you were the first one. Like usually it's the mom.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
yes,
So what was
yes.
what was that feeling like when you held Gabbi for the first time?
It was almost surreal. I mean, we had waited so long for this child. First, trying to have our own, and then going through this very long process. So it was almost like the moment is finally here, and I just can't even believe it.
Oh my gosh. So I can imagine, and you said that this beautiful gift came to you 2 days before Christmas.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
2 days.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. 2 days
So-
before Christmas. And Gabbi, by the way, she looks fantastic, is 23.
Yeah.
So this was a while ago. This was
Yeah.
Gabbi's 23 now, so this was 21 years ago.
That's right.
So then you have this wonderful, joyful family welcoming Gabbi. And then when did you start to notice that she needed help?
Well, I mean, and we had immediate concerns because they didn't tell us that, she was not walking yet. She was really not talking. We had learned some Romanian words, and she didn't seem to be, reciprocating any of the language. So, the next day we actually took her just to check to make sure that physically there was nothing wrong with her. But, as we went down the path, it was clear that she was not really even catching up. Most of the kids over a period of time, they would start catching up to their typical milestones. And we didn't see that with Gabby. She wasn't doing the things that were age appropriate. And again, we gave it some time, but shortly into it, I started thinking, okay, there's something that's not right here. So we started down the path of, going through all the testing, a neurologist and, occupational therapist, and checked her speech, and we did, all the things that.
Hearing and everything.
Yeah. At one point, we thought she had a loss of hearing, and we thought, oh, wow.
That's why she's not picking up the language.
Yeah, but, and then it wasn't until the age of 4 when we got the diagnosis of autism. PDD, NOS, a lot of acronyms that basically are under the autism spectrum.
So when you heard that she was autistic, what were you thinking at that point?
Well, there was a lot of emotion. It was a feeling of wow. We're very spiritual people, and so we have a strong faith in God, and we thought, how could this happen? How could we go through this path to this joyful life that we were envisioning, and then, that we get this news. And of course, if you do the research even today on autism and you start looking at, how it's presented, it's really very challenging. And so I can see why parents feel like, what does this mean for us? Fear of the future. What's going to happen for our child, But I think we immediately got into the mode of finding the right resources for her, finding the right schools, getting her therapies and all those early intervention strategies that are really key, for this population.
And Pier, what about you? Like at this point too, you had told me before that you had a very special bond with Gabby, as most, fathers and daughters do, but you were also working out of the house at that time, right? So
yes.
That even strengthened your bond because you spent so much time with her.
I did. I got to spend some fantastic quality time with her. And I mean, Vicky's employer was great at the time. They gave her, I think, 6 or 8 weeks off, adoption time, same as maternity leave. And so she went back to work, and I was still able to spend really good quality time with Gabby. I think that for me, I was a little more sheltered from thinking things weren't where they should be. I didn't necessarily, I'm like, let's give her more time. She'll be fine. It'll be okay. And Mama was like, no, something's wrong. Yeah. And so, I mean, she did the right thing for the right reasons. And I mean, even the people in the adoption group were kind of the same way. Oh, no, she'll catch up. She'll catch up. And I'm like, yeah, she'll catch up. And Vicky's like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
So,
which is typical in families, by the way. Sometimes there's a lot of denial with it. No, this can't be happening to my child. My child's going to be okay. And so sometimes it's like swept under the rug. Like, no, things are okay. And, what happens is, of course, the more you're in denial, the less you try to really help your child with the right resources that are available for them. So, for me, the path was something's not right. Let's fix it. I'm type A, so let's fix it. No, I think maybe it was a combination of things that were happening, but we certainly were both focused on getting Gabby the right support she needed.
yeah.
And as a journalist, and I hope this question does not come across the right way, but to ask you, were you ever angry at the orphanage or the adoption agency? Because I know, of course, Gabby is your child. You love your child.
Yeah. It's interesting. At the time, as we were going through it, first of all, I think we were so wrapped up in what was going on with Gabby. I mean, she had a lot of behavioral issues. She, being in an orphanage itself with lack of, input and touch and caring, we know now what the effects of that is if they're there longer term. So there were some things that she had to overcome from a lot of different, perspectives, and we were mostly focused on that. We thought about it afterward, and we thought, wow, you probably, and you could probably go anywhere and get a special needs child, adopt them and go through this process.
Having your own.
Right.
If that was but at the end of the day, again, it was meant to be.
Absolutely.
And we're just we believe that. We believe there's a plan for all of us. And sometimes at the time we don't know it. But as you allow it to reveal itself, then you understand it more.
Well, the plan, you are so amazing because you are helping thousands and thousands and thousands of people with your organization. Because at this time, you're still working in corporate America. You have a high power executive job.
No, I actually left.
Well,
Yes.
yeah. So
I left to start
Yes,
a coffee
that's-
company.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to get to. When you were talking about life's plans.
Yes.
And, so here you are, though, and executive, 400 people that report to you. You walk away from that
Yes.
because you wanted to form an organization to help those like Gabbi, help your own daughter, and help those like her, right?
That's exactly right.
So
yes.
what happened? Did
Well-
it just hit you one day?
Yeah, I think it was slow in coming, but when I got to the realization, I knew I was ready. And so I took the leap, and it worked out for me to transition. And I actually started a company, a coffee company, and a nonprofit for autism, relatively at the same time. And what happened was, as I traveled down the path, because my thought was, I'll kind of build up this company, and then I'll do what I really want to do, which is really ramp up the nonprofit for autism. And again, best laid plans. I immediately started to integrate autism into the coffee company because that was really my passion. And then it took us down the path where we were able to start a cafe program, which was not my plans either. It was actually meeting the manager at one of our local dealerships here that was looking for some coffee. And somebody had connected me to him. And as he heard our story, he said, why don't you give me a proposal to run the cafe in our new dealership that was opening up. And so literally gave him the proposal, and within 5 months, we were up and running with a cafe, with a program that was all focused on helping young adults get ready for employment and be employed, which we did employ them in the cafe.
Which is amazing, and I remember covering that story when I worked at a local station
So crazy,
in Tampa.
yes.
So, Pier, at this point, what are you thinking? Like, your wife leaves, she starts this coffee company, and is also integrating the not-for-profit Autism Shifts. What are you thinking at this point?
Well, first of all, you have to know Vicky to understand that there was nothing that was going to stop her. Vicky left out a couple of pieces. We started a coffee company on the retail side, and we got into Publix, we got into Fresh Market, we got into U-Crops out of Virginia.
Wow.
We were having what we perceived to be some success. Ultimately, we realized that retail wasn't. But just the fact that she teamed up with a local artist to come up with unique bags that just got a lot of traction really quickly, but that wasn't really meant to be. So as this thing morphed, it was clear that the vision was really getting refined, that she had a better and better understanding of where things were going. And then with the cafe, the early adoption of that general manager, and she also doesn't say that in the meeting he says, I'm looking for somebody to run the cafe, and her light bulb pops over her head, and she's like, what would you think if I was to staff it with people on the autism spectrum? And he's like, I think that would be great.
That must have been such a defining moment.
Yeah, early adoption that somebody brought in like that.
It was
and
amazing.
She knew it was, in her heart, she knew it was going to be successful.
Yeah, it was a God moment. It all came together, and when it did, it was like, there was no way I could have thought of this on my own. It's very inspired.
Yeah.
Wow. And so from there, Autism Shifts, just grew because you saw something at that coffee shop that even surprised you. Share that story.
Yes. So I went out to teach these young adults, about how to integrate into the world at large, because they're different. Their characteristics are different. And so the goal at the time was to help them fit in. And of course, what I found out was very different than that, because as I got into their world, I realized, wow, this is an amazing world that they're in. And we don't even realize it. We're trying to get them into our world, which you could see sometimes are challenges in our world. And yet they've got a lot of things that really in their world are so beautiful. And so then, of course, they were teaching me about their world. And then, if you get these two worlds, you think, okay, now how do we integrate them? It's not about changing them, right?
Right.
It's really about understanding them.
Yes.
Right? So our world understanding them understanding our world, so then we can come together. Not change who we are, because they are so authentic.
Mm-hmm.
They cannot even, I don't even think they could change, So part of it is just embracing people for who they are. And, autism comes in, they look the same, on the outside, they look the same, right? They could be any color, any nationality, but they look like us, but they are different. And so they're challenging us to a whole new level. It's not even about skin color or nationality. It's about people that are different. And that's neurodiversity. Mm-hmm. And so now I think as a world, and you can see what's going on now, we're being challenged just to love one another for who we are.
Right. And it sounds like such a simple concept.
It's a very simple message.
Yes. Very simple message. It's such a beautiful message.
Yeah.
Just love people for who they are.
Yes.
So that was so eye-opening for you to witness that. So Autism Shifts then now takes on a very clear focus.
Yes.
So tell us about some of the programs and everything you have in place.
Well, what we came to understand is that our autism community is going to be key in really shifting the outcome for this population. And right now, just again, like the journey we went through, where we didn't embrace it, where we didn't understand it, where we didn't see it from the lens of its beauty, I think we as a community need to shift how we view this diagnosis ourselves and kind of be the change, that we wish to see in the world. If really we're embracing it and we understand it and we're empowered by it, then we can really go out and advocate really everywhere, right? So parents are employers. Right now the unemployment rate is really low, but imagine empowered parents out in the corporate world or in the business world, how they could play a key role in really helping to integrate this community into, having successful careers across the board, whatever they want to do, because they're capable of doing it. But part of it is just creating the right environments for them.
And how do you hope to do that? Through your membership programs or through your classes? How do you hope to do that?
So our whole program is really about specialized training, resources, and the opportunity for us to connect as a community. Those are the three pillars of our program. The first thing we have to do is get ourselves up to speed. So it's through workshops, it's through training, it's through our membership program. There are a lot of different ways for parents, caregivers, or individuals with autism to get connected with us. And really, again, come together as a community. And, you've seen it with different movements that have happened historically. The civil rights movement, the women's movement, the LGBTQ movement, those are all communities that first had to really become empowered to really make a shift for themselves. And that's where we're at. And because of our journey, and because we've come from being disempowered and in what we call the red zone, where we're living in fear and worry, to now shifting over to this side. We understand where people are, but we think there's another path. And you too can be, creating this joyful life for your child, with your family. And that's the representation in our community, where we're seeing autism through the positives. Right now we're seeing autism through the lens of its challenges. So if we're showing it with its challenges, that's the stigma.
Right, and people will if they see that, that's what they're going to accept.
That's what they believe,
Mm-hmm.
and employers are believing that. So it makes it very difficult to open the doors when you believe the stigma of it. And so we're just out to kind of show the other side of it and say, no, it doesn't have to be this way. There's a lot of joy, there's a lot of hope, there's a lot of positive expectation for the future, for ourselves, for our child, for our community. And really, we're asking people to join in.
And it's really at a minimal cost.
Oh, yes.
It's very, talk about that. And don't you wish this program, Pier, don't you wish that this was around when you guys were going through everything you were going through?
Yeah, because at the time, you really didn't know other people with children on the spectrum. It just wasn't prevalent. So it was, you're kind of isolated. And now we have an opportunity to pull people together, and that's, having somebody to talk to is such a huge thing. No matter what's going on in your life, you want to call a best friend, you want to call somebody that's going to be able to relate to you. And what better than to have a group of parents or another group of autistic individuals that these individuals can reach out to and say, this is what I'm feeling. And they can say, yeah, I'm feeling that too, but helping them to get to that better place.
Yeah, they all want to feel connected. We think, people with autism are loners. They don't want to be. They want to have a community around them just like anybody, right? So it's giving them the opportunity to connect and have their own support system, right? So, I wish at the time, we were in the survival mode sometimes, but I wish that we'd had an opportunity to have something like this where people say, hey, you're not alone. We get what you're going through, but here's some potential solutions for that.
Right.
Here's some ways to look at that, or here's some resources that can help you with that. And so that's really what we want to create, that kind of support for our community.
But not having had it is what caused you to create it.
Right.
Yes. It was.
And had we not adopted Gabrielle, we wouldn't be on this path. So absolutely everything for a reason,
I know, it gives me goosebumps. And this is something too and I think it's important for listeners and viewers to know, that this is just not limited to Tampa or Florida. You want to grow this program nationally and internationally, and you can do that because of the virtual
Online. Yes. So this whole period that we've gone through now has really boosted, what we've always had the desire to take everything online, because you can connect with so many people across the globe. We're all part of this community. And so this allows us the ability to do that, to make it feasible for people wherever they're at to really connect as a community.
So for people to find you, how do they find you and to learn more about the programs? Do they go to autismshifts.org? What is your best recommendation?
Yes. So autismshifts.org is our website, and we've got a lot of information on there. And then, of course, we've got social media, Facebook for Autism Shifts, and Twitter and LinkedIn. So there's a lot of different ways that the families can connect with us.
Well, you guys have a beautiful story, and I love sharing it. I also want to mention that you just celebrated your 33rd wedding anniversary, and when you watch my video, the beautiful roses that you see behind Vicky's interview are from her husband, each rose representing the 33 years. So in closing, what is the secret for a successful marriage? And you guys have gone through, I'm sure this process was a beautiful process bringing you guys together, but I'm sure it was tough too. So what's the secret?
Yes.
What's the secret?
Oh my gosh.
Making time for each other, really. Keeping date nights. Just having time to be able to spend together and to connect. You can get so caught up and so involved and forget about that closeness that you had before you had a child. And I think that's true for any parent.
Yeah.
It's obviously being great friends and great partners in everything that we do, but to me, it's been always having time for each other and making time for each other.
And I think for me, it's been someone who helps you become the best person that you can be. And Pier has always been there for me, supporting me, encouraging me, believing in me, and having that unconditional love has made a huge difference.
You're going to make me boo-hoo.
It's so
So-
sweet. You know, I am so in love with love. I've actually set up several couples that have gotten married. And one of the questions that a lot of my friends, my girlfriends especially, ask is, do men really know immediately? And Piers said, yes, he did.
I did.
Immediately.
Yep. Well, I mean, I wouldn't have called you every day for a week at lunchtime
Yeah.
with some stupid question had I not known there was something there. And then when I met you, that was just it. Head over heels, down the stairs, off you go. Forget
Meant
about
to
it.
be. Meant
Yeah.
to be.
And I think this whole podcast meant to be.
Meant to
right?
be. It's our theme.
Yes,
Meant to be.
I can't even thank you guys enough for being on here. Pier,
Thank
Gabby, and Vicky, you of course too.
You're
Thank you so much for listening, everybody. In closing, paraphrasing one of my favorite poets, Ralph Waldo Emerson, go where there is no path and leave a trail, just like you did, the Westras. Thanks for listening to Trailblazer, everyone. I'm Sarina Fazan.
Thank you.
Thank you.